New York is not known as a tornado state. The Midwest owns that crown. But we do have, on average, 9 touchdowns a year. But this year, it's up to 14 when you include this week's tornado that tore up a chunk of Wells and then Glens Falls. A conversation with a National Weather Service investigator on how he confirms tornadoes in sometimes remote places. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Kenny Drugs, now offering a new mobile app to help patients better manage prescriptions for themselves and their family. More at kennydrugs.com. And Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Friday, July 19th. First up, a global technology outage disrupted airlines, banks, and hospitals last night, including some services here in the North Country. In a statement, the Samaritan Medical Center in Watertown said they needed to limit and reschedule most patients' appointments earlier today while they troubleshot computer issues. Medical oncology morning appointments at the Walker Center for Cancer Care were also canceled. The hospital expected most systems to be up and running by noon. As of now, Jefferson County 911 and public safety communications are operational, and the county is working to restore other services. Clinton County is at odds with Greyhound over the bus company's abrupt change in bus stops. For years, the stop was located at the Mountain Mart gas station on Route 9 in Plattsburgh. It also became an impromptu way station for migrants crossing north and south across the Canadian border. But on Monday, without notice to the county, Greyhound moved its bus stop to a spot on Cornelia Street, where Clinton County Public Transit also has stops. Joe LaTemplio has been reporting on the situation for the Plattsburgh Press-Republican. He told Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman the county has multiple concerns.
Naturally, they need the space. There's at least 4 buses that pull up there every hour on the hour to drop off and pick up. So they're concerned that if a Greyhound bus is there, there won't be any room for the county buses. Number 2, if a large Greyhound bus or any coach bus is parked there, it's big. It might impede into the traffic lane, which is a safety issue. There is an emergency egress from the county parking lot there. If the buses are blocking that, that's a concern. And also, as Mark Henry, the legislature chairman, said, their concern is there is no coordination, no cooperation, no communication. They never heard from Greyhound. Greyhound just, as he said, showed up and started stopping there.
Something that both, County Legislature Chair Mark Henry and Mayor Chris Rosenquist brought up that you reported on is that there is a bus terminal at the airport that could potentially be used for the situation. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the multimodal transportation facility out at the Plattsburgh International Airport campus. It's there, and it's empty, so it could be used. The question is, will an entity like Greyhound or somebody else be willing to pay rent to the county? How much? Can they make a deal? Will it be staffed? Will there be other amenities? People that get off the bus might have to wait for other rides or whatever. It'd be nice to have bathrooms, which I think there are out there, and maybe a vending machine or something, some kind of drinks or snacks. But all that has to be staffed and worked out. Is it possible? Yes, it is. But it remains to be seen if Greyhound would even be willing to do that.
And, something we haven't talked about yet is that Greyhound is often used by migrants who either, cross the border illegally and were released by CBP or who, are trying to continue on, get to Canada and might get bounced back. And that's why Mountain Mart kind of became a gathering place for them over the last few years. So what are officials saying about, that dynamic and how it's impacting what should be done with this bus stop?
There hasn't been too much discussion about who is on the bus. It's more concerned about how this whole thing unfolded. But yes, there are at times large numbers of migrants that are waiting for a bus. We saw that at Mountain Mart. The overall attitude was, like I said, from the county and Mayor Rosenquist was, doesn't matter who's on it. We have to work out a safe spot for the bus.
That was Joe LaTemplio from the Plattsburgh Press-Republican speaking with our Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman, who's based in Plattsburgh. Three of the 5 tornadoes that tore through upstate New York on Tuesday were reported in the southern Adirondacks. Huge swaths of trees were torn down. Tens of thousands of people lost power. A team of people surveyed the damage in Hamilton and Warren counties after the storm. Emily Russell spoke with one of them, Timothy Humphrey from the National Weather Service, about what it was like to watch the radar during Tuesday's storm and what he saw on the ground the next day.
We noticed what is called a tornado debris signature, which is the radar detecting all the damaged trees that are flying through the air. That is something you more typically see out in the plains where there are stronger tornadoes more frequently, and not necessarily something you see in upstate New York as often.
So one of the tornadoes in the southern Adirondacks hit a really remote area near Wells in Hamilton County. You went out there to look for damage. How did you actually go about finding evidence of that tornado? And when you found it, what did it look like?
Finding evidence of damage in the Adirondacks is certainly a challenge given how remote the area is. That's where we rely on reports from the public and those who see storm damage. We can then compare those reports to radar data to see if it matches up with where we are expecting tornado damage to be. In the case of the Wells tornado, we had a clear indication on radar that a tornado occurred, and we were fortunate that there was a road that the tornado passed over that we could use to access the damage. However, it was still in a very remote area. As we drove down the road, we did find the point where the tornado crossed the road, and there was a 300-yard wide area of damage where all the trees were snapped and were uprooted. However, we couldn't see how long the track was, and that's where our partners at the State Office of Emergency Management were very helpful and were able to fly a drone along the path link for us.
What was it like to actually be on the ground, where a tornado passed through and just like see the force of the effects of a tornado?
It was certainly an experience that puts the power of nature into perspective, seeing how the winds can flatten that many trees in that large of an area. I've gone out and surveyed damage before. The damage that we saw in terms of tree damage was some of the more significant tree damage that I've seen. And there are still areas that we haven't been able to access due to all that damage. So in terms of tree damage, it was very impressive.
So New York State has already had at least 14 reported tornadoes this year, and my understanding is that the annual average is more like 10. So what does that say about weather patterns and how they're changing as the climate changes? And should we expect more of these kinds of storms in the future?
So New York State averages 9 tornadoes a year, according to the Storm Prediction Center. With the 14 tornadoes that have already occurred this year, we are above average. In terms of how climate change will impact the frequency of smaller scale and short-lived severe weather like thunderstorms and tornadoes, it's difficult to assess given how small scale they are. However, studies do indicate that the environments that these storms can form in are likely to become more frequent in a warmer and wetter climate.
That was meteorologist Tim Humphrey from the National Weather Service in Albany speaking with Emily Russell. New York is at its peak in severe weather season, so there may be more storms this summer. Humphrey says everyone should make sure to get weather updates from trusted sources and always have a plan for what to do if a severe weather warning is issued for your area. We have more news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Zoe Knight of Potsdam and Pencil Dive of Saratoga Springs. Have a great weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.